I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's a phone stand. It's not mine, but I'm using it because it's actually really handy. It's like, I feel like I'm back in high school playing clarinet. Yes, I played the freaking clarinet when I was in high school. Don't ask me why I took that up. Hello everyone and welcome to The Everyday Project. My name is Mel Bowmans and I'm your host. Today I will be talking about what it is like to learn a language for the first time as an adult. Why I started learning Spanish, how I've been learning, which has been through classes and one-on-one, and what that's been like. I'll also be talking about the benefits, the pros, cons of classes versus one-on-one. I'll be talking about my experience with my partner speaking Spanish and having kind of a bilingual relationship and what that's been like. And I'm also going to touch on some of my favorite Spanish words that can't be translated into English, and just overall talk about what my language learning journey has been like and why I enjoy it, why I decided to learn a language, and hopefully be able to provide any advice or encouragement to anyone who's been thinking about that as something that they want to do. So if you are on the fence about learning a language, you're considering it, or you are just wanting to hear from someone else's experience of what that's been like, this would be the episode for that. And I hope that you enjoy. The first language I ever learnt was Italian. When I say I learned how to count to 10. I learned how to say maybe I don't even remember how to say how are you actually now I think about it. But I basically just remember counting. I remember coming in the classroom and harmoniously singing, "Good morning, Signora Marie." And then my school randomly decided to change to Mandarin. So I remember learning bits of Mandarin, like ni hao ma, wo hen hao, jai jin ba, like just very simple phrases. Hello, how are you? Goodbye. And my biggest flex still today is that I can count to 100 in Mandarin. So I do say that to everyone. I'm like, I remember being quite engaged at this level. Like when I was younger, I remember caring, like it was kind of fun to learn a language. I remember my name in Chinese is Ma Linda, and it was cool to see that written in Chinese as well. So I remember making that was like a big thing. And then in high school, we started learning German. We had the choice between German and Indonesian. I don't know why, but I ended up choosing German. And honestly, I remember kind of dreading that class a lot. I think because I really didn't understand. I found that quite hard. I wasn't motivated with it. I think I didn't really want to learn either of those languages, German or Indonesian. I just didn't have an interest or feel a purpose. I don't remember feeling like I really enjoyed those classes. So yeah, I remember bits of German as well, but I think I never really felt strongly connected to languages when I was younger. I found it quite hard to learn languages in school. I don't know. I honestly think it was because I just wasn't motivated with it. I didn't have a purpose for it, and I didn't feel that those were the languages that I wanted to learn. And I always wished that I could speak a language, because when I heard other languages, I was like, oh, I wish I could I always found it really impressive. I found it really fascinating to watch other people speak in their natural language or a different language to me. And yeah, of course, I just thought that it was really intelligent, people that could do that, and I admired it. But I think my real interest in learning a language definitely came from travel, especially when I did my Europe trip back in #Europe trip, #Eurosummer. But yeah, when I did that trip, I feel like, walking around Florence, seeing kids like 3 years old switching between languages, like it was turning the light on and off, was just so fascinating to me that, there are 3-year-olds walking around being able to speak 3 different languages. And I'm like, if a 3-year-old can do it, I can bloody do it. Like, I don't know. I think I just started getting curious, more and more curious about languages as you travel, of course, and you meet people from different backgrounds and speaking different languages. Of course, you become more curious, and it also almost felt like this is something I also need to do. Like, I can't be traveling the world and speaking just English. Like, how uncultured of me I feel. It almost feels wrong, everyone having to. I think also, like, when I spent a lot of time in Airlie, this was again, as we know, and through this podcast, if you've listened to all the episodes, Ely has been a pivotal place for me where I've done a lot of learning and growing, and just a typical Australian tourist town, and you wouldn't expect this to be the place where I feel inspired to learn Spanish. But because I spent time there living with Hispanic people and just hearing Spanish or different languages all day because I was living in a hostel, that I felt this exclusion. I was like, I almost felt silly. Every single person I met could speak at least 2 languages or more. And I was like, why am I not speaking more languages? I don't know, almost just this displacement, I guess, of not being able to speak another language, and it became something I wanted to be a part of. And yeah, after meeting some people and having some gentle encouragement from them, and also being able to say a couple of things, been practicing on Duolingo, I felt like I was also at a time in my life where I had a lot of space for a new hobby. And yeah, when I came back, I was like, I've always wanted to learn a new language. And I don't know, I started thinking about it seriously. And then I was like, you know what, let's just do it. And I looked at some classes, booked it in to kind of make myself go. And then I went. And I do remember my first ever Spanish class, I was so nervous. It was really intimidating doing that. I was really scared about what I was putting myself into. I remember like thinking, oh my gosh, people probably going to know a lot more than me and I'm going to feel behind. And I think that's how it feels in general, taking up any new hobby as an adult. Like, I'm not sure, but like I imagine if you start playing a new sport or you start doing something that you haven't done, and you just feel so much more. At least for me, I feel like as a kid, it's fine if you don't know anything. You're trying new things all the time, and used to being a beginner at everything as a kid. But you putting yourself out there and doing a new hobby and trying something is a lot more intimidating, I think, as an adult. And I was really proud of myself when I started doing that. And then obviously I kind of committed to the term. So then I was in there, and then there was like 8 weeks of Spanish. I really didn't even know how to count to 10 or anything about this language. And now I feel like I've learnt so much, and even about the different kinds of Spanish. Like obviously Spanish is a very universal language. That was also one of the reasons why I wanted to learn it. So yeah, the reasons why I really wanted to learn Spanish was because, one, you know, I'd always wanted to learn another language, and my interest in Spanish came from the people that I met in my travels and just meeting a lot of Spanish people. I started building a bit more of a group of people around me that spoke that. So then I was like, well, I'm interested in this. I want to keep learning this language. Also, Spanish is fucking sexy. Like, who doesn't want to speak Spanish? Like, if you could just randomly one day speak Spanish, wouldn't you want to do that as well? I don't know, but that is at least what I felt. And so I was like, I want to learn this language. It's just it's a beautiful language. It's also Latin based. So, and it's very universal. A lot of people, like, I don't know what the stats are, like 1/3 of the world speaks Spanish or something like that. And it's also Latin based, which is great because if I want to be a polyglot in the future, or a bilingual queen or whatever, or a trilingual queen, which a polyglot is someone who speaks multiple languages. But if I want to do that when I'm older, I can easily then expand to French or to Italian. So yeah, maybe I will go back to my primary school days and start learning Italian one day. But I think, yeah, for now I'm just really focused on Spanish. And so yeah, that was where my interest came from, and just traveling in general just really made me crave wanting to speak another language. And also I had this idea that I wanted to go to Spain one day. And after I made that decision in my mind, and I came back home, I was like, well, I better start learning Spanish. And it was just the time and the place, and it was just the right moment to start doing that because I had that space in my life to take up a new hobby. So I started taking classes in El Patio in Brunswick. I think classes are great because they give you a commitment. You know, you have to commit to at least a term usually. And once you do that, you're kind of in, you start learning, and then you kind of just do want to keep going and going. And I will say, I think it's a great way, even if you aren't sure if committing or not. I think I'm a big believer of like the only way to find things out is just kind of doing them sometimes. So I think if you're curious about it, you should 100% just give it a go. You do just have to get over that hurdle and realize that, you know, you're just like everyone else in that room wants to be there to learn a language, and no, you're all there to sound silly. In terms of classes, they're really good for giving you that structure, for meeting people who also want to learn and being able to practice with them. It's a good place to start, is what I'm saying. I think classes are a great way to kind of just get you committed. I think I did about 3 or 4 terms in El Patio, and that was really good for me. And I might even go back. I still might go back. I honestly, the only reason I have discontinued that is because of money and because I've ended up starting one-on-one tutoring with a lady in Guatemala. So she is now teaching me. Yeah, for me, that is what has worked better, because it's honestly just because it suits my routine better and I'm able to personalize it more. And I do enjoy the fact that I have more one-on-one speaking time with someone. Also, 4 months after I started learning Spanish and about 4 or 5 months, I can't remember exactly the time frame, but I ended up meeting my partner Pedro, who is Argentinian. And of course, they say the best way to start learning a language is to have a boyfriend. I just want to talk a little bit about how I decided which type of Spanish to start learning, because obviously there's Spain Spanish where they pronounce things like with the TH sound, like gracias, and, you know, they speak differently and they have different ways of saying it. And they use vosotros, which is another grouping. You don't use that in Latin America. So yeah, they're different. There's slightly different grammatical things and different ways of talking, depending where the Spanish is from. Obviously, when I met Pedro, and he's Argentinian, also coincidentally, all my teachers at El Patio had been Argentinian as well. So I started coming to these classes with like Argentinian slang, and Argentina has a lot of slang. And so it's just not the things that you would learn on a textbook Spanish class. So it was quite funny to be able to like pull them out in my Spanish classes, like cheto mal or boludo. Over time, it's obviously been very helpful to have Pedro on this language learning journey as well, because I just have the ability to kind of practice any time of the day when I want. We have this time where we're like, okay, muy bueno, clase de español. Let's practice together. And then I start like pretending that I'm vlogging and just talking and like saying things that we're doing or asking him questions. And we talk about our day in Spanish sometimes. Like that, having that time with someone to practice always or whenever is so nice. And I don't think any class or anything can compare to that as well, because really that's what learning a language is. You need to be immersed in it, and it's really hard to learn a different language to where you're living. I will say, like, living in Australia and trying to practice learning a language, I almost feel like I'm never going to get fluent until I live somewhere where I can be speaking and thinking in Spanish all the time. And I think that's what I need. And so that's why in my head it is the goal to go to Spain and eventually be able to practice that properly. But for now, we're here and we've got to find a way to kind of maintain all the things that I'm learning and be practicing that. So I'm really grateful also to have Pedro's friends to kind of practice with sometimes occasionally as well. And just building that community, like I still have some Hispanic friends that are in Melbourne, and just trying to stay in touch with those people that also can allow me to have that space to speak in Spanish is really important. Like finding people in a community that you can speak and practice with is so important, because you need to hear it from natural speakers and like be able to put that into practice. So how did I decide which Spanish I wanted to learn? Well, obviously it became very obvious to me that I was going to go down the road of learning Spanish from Argentina, which is called Rioplatense Spanish, which is named after the region Rio de Plata. And this type of Spanish often switches between like the tu to vos, which is like, instead of saying you, so when they say you, they don't say tu, they say vos. Asking how are you in Argentina, you might say todo bien, they say todo bien y vos. So like is different to in Spain or in other countries where they use the term tu. So that's a very obvious difference. Another obvious difference is they have these unique sounds like so and sho. So when they pronounce things in Latin America, when they're saying gracias, they say gracias. Instead of in Spain, they might say gracias. And then also in Argentina specifically, they say sho. So sh. Like those sounds are very typical for Argentina, like como se llama. So like in Spain, it would be como se llama. Como se llama. Como se llama. So is different. It's a different accent, and there are different ways of saying it. And the Spanish specifically from Buenos Aires is Spanish porteño, which is the same Spanish that Lionel Messi speaks. So if that gives you some context of like what that sounds like, that is an example of someone who speaks that. And it's quite a obvious accent too, because it also has this, it sounds a bit Italian. It's actually, there is definitely like this thread of Italian that you can hear in that accent, which is something I also love about this particular Spanish. So overall, yeah, it became very obvious to me that I just needed to start learning this type of Spanish because that was what my partner spoke, and most of my teachers had been Argentinian as well. So it just naturally kind of led me in that direction, and now here we are. I've just fully gone into leaning into becoming Argentinian and having a partner who speaks Spanish. I just wanted to touch on this because I think it's an interesting topic to speak about, is what that's been like for us as a couple, like from him being fluent in Spanish and that being his first language and my first language obviously being English. So it's been nice because firstly we've been able to share languages and help each other. So he's able to help me with Spanish, I'm able to help him with English. The more we've been together and the more that we're both practicing these different languages, the more we're able to understand about each other as well, because learning a language is not just learning the words and the phrases and different things. It's almost learning a new culture. It's learning so much more about the way these people think, about the way they feel and express feelings. And I think like understanding that in my relationship with Pedro has been really interesting as well. It feels unnatural to me because I'm still learning the language and it still isn't something that feels natural for me speaking and thinking that. I don't feel like I'm thinking that. It's not natural for me to go te quiero, when we first started dating. Like it would be like I have to actually think, wait, what is that word again? I want to say it to you, but like it doesn't feel like I'm saying it because I'm having to think it, if that makes sense. But it's funny how over time these languages have become more combined, and now obviously learning Spanish for longer and having more language to be able to use and being able to think a bit more in Spanish, I still feel like it's obviously not my first thought. I'm still thinking in English all the time, but I feel like now when we say te amo, which means I love you, if I say that, it feels like it is coming from me and feels more natural. And because when he's saying those things to me, like I understand what they mean, but they feel different, and the same vice versa. But now I think we're at a point where if we say te amo or I love you, both of them feel really natural and right. Having a relationship, a bilingual relationship, it's fantastic. And especially if you're both learning those languages, you can really help each other. And I think it's just been really interesting, like noticing how we differently express our feelings. And it will be interesting one day. I think the goal would be when Pedro and I are having like expressive conversations where we want to express our emotions more strongly, it would be the goal for me to be able to speak in English and say the things I feel and think, and him to be able to speak in his natural language, and I can understand that, and we have a conversation like that. I would say my level is, I haven't learnt past tense. I think I'm either A1 or A2. I'm not sure if that means anything to anyone, but in front of me, I could maybe get the context of what's happening, wouldn't understand full sentences. I would understand words and bits and pieces. I have the ability to talk about my day. I can form full sentences. I would say I'm at a pretty basic level still, even though it's been 2 years. And that is when I say you really have to be dedicated and interested in learning a language and have a deeper purpose in it for yourself. I think, when I compare learning languages in school versus now, I'm like, I'm doing this because I want to do it. And that's really what it is at the end of the day. If you want to do something, you will do it and you will continue to do it. I think for me, there is an interest in it, and even more so thank you to Pedro as well. But I do want to preface that I was learning Spanish before I met him. And I think that is also important to note, because it's like, this is still a goal I wanted to do before that. And all of these things are now attributing to it. So it's widened my mind. And one of my favorite things about learning Spanish has also been learning words that cannot be translated to English. Firstly, chamuchar. This is one of my favorite ones. Chamuchar exists a lot. Basically, it means to like sweet talk or chat someone up or talk your way into something. So, for example, if a guy is hitting on a girl and like he's sweet talking her, that's something you would say is chamuchero, which, isn't always a positive thing. So, but I just think that's an amazing word, because we don't have something like that exists in English that I can say like that. That is something that is, definitely like I can't translate that. I'm just like, when people say something like about love bombing or something on dating, I'm like, oh, he's being chamachero, and people were like, what the fuck, what does that mean? But like, I actually can't explain that that's what it means. Madrugada, like the hours between midnight and dawn. Like, you know how we've got like midnight, we've got dawn, we've got sunrise, sunset, like those kind of times. Or, you know, merienda as well, like an afternoon tea. Like we have afternoon tea or something, but like merienda is like such a nice way of saying like afternoon tea. I don't know, that just feels like it makes more sense to me than afternoon tea sometimes. But madrugada is a word that doesn't exist in English, or we don't really have a word for that. We're something between the hours of midnight and dawn. Disfruta is to enjoy, but I feel like in English to enjoy doesn't quite capture what disfruta is. It's more like it implies actively savoring and taking in pleasure in that experience. It's like really like, yes, savoring that moment and like enjoying it a lot, but it's a bit more strong than just to enjoy it, you know, like it's like disfruta. Like, so I love that one as well. This is a new one that I've been learning the last few weeks with my Spanish teacher, because I keep trying to say, oh, I hope that I'll be able to do this. I hope I'll be able to do this. And ojalá. Ojalá means I hope, but in a deeper sense of yearning and wishing. And I just think that is just a beautiful word, like ojalá. Then you've got like funny words that are specific to Argentina, but boludo, which I said before, is like idiot, mate, fool, but it's also everything. It's like, it's just a word that covers everything. Like you want to call your friend an idiot, it could be affectionate, it could be fun. It's like, I don't know, there's no equivalent again to English of what that is, but I just love that as a term now. Learning Spanish has just widened my mind and been able to introduce me to that, to these different words that I, you know, don't know exist. And I'm like, wow, why don't we have a word for that in English? And it's crazy when you think about that. And that's why I say about widening my mind, because it's like, well, no one has thought about this in English, and that's the difference we have in our thinking, you know. Those kind of words give you a taste of like how Spanish is a bit of a romantic language. It is something that is yes, it is chamochar. Suppose you do want to hear me speak something in Spanish, so I did write a little something. Si entiendes este episodio y te está gustando, me encantaría que me siguieras en Spotify o donde sé que estás escuchando. Lo menciono porque siempre me olvido de decirlo y la verdad es que me ayuda muchísimo. Es difícil hacer crecer un podcast, así que te agradezco mucho el apoyo. Muchas gracias. Bueno, ahora seguimos en inglés. I just wanted to say that the translation in English is pretty much, if you're understanding this episode and you're enjoying it, follow me on Spotify or wherever you're listening. And I just had to mention this because I always forget to say this, and I appreciate your help a lot. Thank you so much. And okay, let's continue in English. So I just wanted to say that because I feel like if I'm doing a whole episode in Spanish, I would be like, okay, just say something in Spanish. You know how people are like, say something in Spanish, say something. My reading and my pronunciation is much better. Hopefully anyone who is Spanish thinks I did okay. Anyways, I thought I'd do a couple of rapid fire questions. Firstly, does Duolingo work? I think the thing with Duolingo is you can only get so much from that app. Duolingo can be fantastic for recall and fantastic for just practicing and patterns. Like you learn patterns, you learn words. It's good for remembering those kinds of things. And again, I think just practice. It's a good extra 10 minutes a day of practice, which I honestly should be on there now, just still doing that, because it's something that just keeps encouraging you to think in Spanish. The best thing that Duolingo does is encourages you to think in the language for 10 minutes. So I think that yes, it serves a purpose and it's useful, but there's only so much you can get from that. And I definitely don't think you can fully learn a language based on Duolingo. You need to be learning the grammar and understanding it. And I think that was the biggest difference I found when I started taking classes and actually learning about the grammar. I'm like, oh, now I get it. And now I can apply that to something else. And like, you can actually understand the language, not just remember things. So yes, Duolingo serves a place, but it's only going to get you so far. My advice that I would give to any beginners or someone thinking about taking a language, I think if it's something that interests you, you've been thinking about it for a while and you just feel like you want to do it, you just got to go for it. I think you just got to commit to the bit, sign yourself up and just take a shot. I think that was the best thing that's like kickstarted everything for me and made me more interested. I think it's a good way to build interest. I think if I had have done one-on-one mentoring at the start, I don't think I would have found as much passion and excitement for it, maybe because the classes you enter with people who also are excited about learning this language and you're doing it with them, it's like it is fun to be surrounded by that and motivating, I would say. So I think it's really good to get you started, but then the deeper that you get into it, the more kind of self-reliance and commitment you have on doing the language. And I think just think about what your goals are. Like for me, my goals were potentially going to Spain and living there for a while. I think you need to have a goal. I think that's important to have purpose in what you're doing and to feel like you're committed, because the one thing I keep saying is that learning a language just takes years, literally years. And I think I felt a bit like I feel silly to not know that now. But I kind of thought, oh yeah, I want to learn this language. I didn't realize like what I was really getting myself into, that it's literally like a lifelong journey. So I'd say enroll yourself in classes and know what your goals are. How would you choose which language you want to learn if you're not sure? I think someone was saying to me, like, what language should I learn? Like, I don't know which one to do because I really like Italian and I like French. So how would I choose between the two? And I don't know. I think, for me, like I said, it was a natural choice that happened, that I just surrounded myself with people that started speaking Spanish, and like then surrounded myself with more Argentinian people and more. And that just became a theme. I think you can uncover that as you go and build an interest. I think maybe you're at the point where you're still exploring that. So maybe I would just suggest trying again, like you just try both, maybe enroll in both classes and see which one you like best, or go to a trial of something. Also, Facebook groups, I have not mentioned that yet, but they are incredible. If you want to learn a language, I joined a Facebook group. I found a free event in Brunswick. Every couple of fortnights, there's this free Spanish conversation class, and I've been to that a few times now, and it's fantastic. It's free and it's 2 hours of speaking and listening Spanish. It was actually much more advanced than my level. Like I went and I was like a full beginner, and there were people there that are just going to practice their Spanish. So they've been speaking for 5 years and they're having intense conversations. I'm not understanding anything, but I still got a lot of praise for going to that from the people there. They were quite impressed that I showed up as someone who didn't really know any Spanish or that much Spanish, because the reason I was there was just to practice listening, to being immersed in it, and just surrounding yourself with as much of that language as you can, I think is the difference in learning faster or slower. Yeah, so just trying to take advantage of those kind of free things. Go to the Latin festivals, go make friends with people in those communities, because you're going to need them to practice with and speak with. And also, if you can, travel. Travel is a fantastic way to learn. If I could spend 3 months in Guatemala now, maybe I would, because it would excel my learning muy rápido. We are coming to the end of my episode. The very last question is, what's been the best thing about learning Spanish? The confidence it's given me in myself. Learning a language is so humbling. I've had to put myself in so many situations where I know I'm going to sound like an idiot, and practicing that is a skill in itself. Try and talk in Spanish, or try and be a beginner in those situations every time, is something you have to practice. You have to practice feeling silly. I've actually got 2 answers to this, but yeah, I think one is the confidence that it's given me in myself to be able to learn something new again. And that's been really fun. It's been challenging, fun, but deeply, deeply rewarding to see that progress and execute that in real life situations. Practicing this imperfectness and just showing up and trying something new as an adult can be very intimidating. But I think like doing that, I feel really happy that I'm doing it. And the other part of that, I think, has been the level of understanding that I have built for people who have English as a second language, or are living in a country where the language spoken there is not their first language. And I think I found that through a lot of travelers, and like I've just found a lot more compassion and understanding for that, and how difficult that actually is, and how much courage it takes to do that, and also how much dedication it takes as well. And also I feel quite lucky, English being my first language, considering so many people in the world want to learn English. Like I almost feel like greater appreciation for English as well. yeah, overall, my takeaway is that like Spanish, I think about how many things that's actually brought into my life now. How this journey started as a curiosity, then it started as a little commitment to some classes. It started as a hobby, and now it's become a large part of my life. Now I'm traveling maybe to Argentina a few times. My partner is Argentinian, and I wouldn't have even met him if I didn't speak Spanish, because the only reason I was open to that on the dating apps was because I was practicing, and I was like, oh, may as well go on some dates with some people who speak Spanish. Why not? I think about how many things that Spanish has brought me in my life, experiences, learnings, people, and that is what learning a language does for you. It opens doors to new things. I think that's what learning a language does. It just widens your scope in the world. It widens your possibilities in the world, your friendships, your relationships, your travel experiences, your perspective. That it widens everything. If that doesn't convince you to learn a language, I don't know what. It's been a great journey so far. I'm still taking my time with it, and it's something that I just work on when I want. And I'm excited that I've opened this door, and now it's always there when I want to access. Muchas gracias for being here today, and thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you think about starting a new language, or I hope this has inspired you or encouraged you in some way. I'm your host, Mel Bowmans. If you have enjoyed the show, please don't forget to like, rate, or subscribe wherever you're listening to this. If you think there's someone that would find this episode interesting, I would love if you shared that with them. Don't forget to quiet noise and romanticize your life. And I'll be back next time. Cheto mal, boludo. Porco. That's Italian, don't say that one. It's rude. Anyways, I'm going to get cancelled for swearing in different languages now. Hasta pronto.